What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown Podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration business owner. My name is Ben Riccardi from Ironclad Restoration Marketing, and I'm the author of the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors. Now, the Restoration Rundown is your source for everything related to managing and owning your restoration business, from bringing on special guests and sharing success stories to taking deep dives with our team here at Ironclad Restoration Marketing into all of the online channels that you need to be tapping into to get visibility for your restoration business and get more leads from the internet. We've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready for the rundown. All right, what's up, everybody? Boom, you see how fast my hair and my beard grew from that intro to now. Anyways, welcome back to the Restoration Rundown. We've got a really great episode tuned up for you guys today. This guest is somebody that you probably know, and if you don't, you probably are living in a cave, especially if you're in the restoration industry. He's bringing over 20 years of experience. He has dedicated to his career to empowering restoration companies, and that's why I'm very excited to bring him on today, because we've got a chance to hang out a little bit at RIA and talk a little bit, and I think he shares the same sentiments as far as empowering the industry with education. However, his channel much different than the marketing. So without further ado, I'm really excited to bring on my friend and yours, Mr. Andrew McCabe from
What's
Delegates.
How you doing, man?
I love the weather that you got going on in the background there. I don't know where you found that nook where there's still snow on the ground.
It's always beautiful here in Bend. It's always beautiful. And we haven't switched over to summer yet. I'll do that switch in a little bit.
Yeah. How long does you will at least you get to dictate how long the summer lasts, how versus, having to play by nature's rules.
That's right. Right. I don't play by rules. I don't do that very much.
Man, and that's why I love you. And that's why we're here today. So for everybody out there that doesn't know or watching, our tens of listeners here on Spotify and across the board and worldwide. I mean, we actually just saw we have listeners in Japan and Australia. The Japanese probably just accidentally happened upon this, but we do have some international viewers or listeners.
Nice.
So give me a little bit of a background on who you are, what you do, and how you fit into this crazy world called the restoration industry.
This is a crazy world. I started back in 2001. I just graduated college, had a marketing and business degree, and saw an ad in the newspaper. That's back when jobs were actually posted in the newspaper.
Wow.
For a marketing representative for a local restoration company called Dow Columbia in Portland, Oregon. And so I took the job, and I was the marketing manager, which really meant I was the stop and drop candy guy to every agent in the Portland metro area. I saw every agent in Portland, Oregon, every 3 months. And that's really what got me started in this crazy world. I had no idea restoration existed before I got into it. I think that's a common refrain. And it kind of got stuck in me. I started being, they wanted to turn me into an estimator, but before I could do that, they had to send me to ASCR classes, formerly ASCR, now it's RIA. So I got my WRT, my ASD, my mold, my CRT, Certified Restoration Technician, and worked my way up. And, fast forward a few years, 2012, I decided to start a Xactimate remote estimating firm. And so that's what I did. Started Claims Delegates. We do remote estimating for restoration contractors in Xactimate across the country. And bounce back and forth, but that's pretty much where I've been ever since 2012. But 2013, 14, the rebels kind of happened. I took a job in Bend, Oregon, the beautiful scene behind me, you can see, and was promptly fired 4.5 months later. And I decided, you know what, this sucks. Let's not do that again. And I found out that there's a lot of people in restoration that just couldn't find a home. Like we don't play well with others. And it built from there. There's a lot of folks out there that don't like the traditional path of restoration. They don't want to just run another franchise or they don't want to be a cog in a wheel. They want to to blaze their own trail. And that's what we are. The Restoration Rebels are a bunch of trailblazing independent restorers that get together to help each other out and develop best practices and things like that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that background too. And yeah, getting fired sucks. And it's really cool that you get to kind of do things on your own terms. So the Restoration Rebels, just to back it up a second, is a Facebook community group that you started. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what people can expect? Because I would assume that most everybody knows or has this community, just because you're not the cookie cutter, normal Facebook group. Everything is smiles and candy and rainbows and everything is beautiful, like we tend to see at a lot of association groups and a lot of the other groups that are on there. Definitely caught my attention, just being like an outside guy looking in, outside of the restoration area looking in. I really love what I seen, because it seems like there's no holds barred. There's no bullshit that goes on with anything that happens in there. People can go in there and ask legitimate questions and get legitimate answers. And then you get the external people to come in and kind of maybe ruffle some feathers a little bit. But can you talk a little bit about that group? What was the reason behind starting that in the first place? And then how different is it now? Well, outside of the name change, which we'll get into, but how different is it now as far as a group goes than from when you first started? Because I'm sure you didn't I'm just going to make this group called the Rebels and see what's happening. Walk me through that a little bit.
Well, I've been pretty outspoken about my opinions, about what's happening in the industry, what's happening to restorers as TPAs have come online and taken more and more market share, as big roll-up companies have started to dominate. I saw some trends early on, and I was just vocal on LinkedIn, mainly on LinkedIn. And then I started getting phone calls. This is about 2014, 2015. I started getting phone calls from other restorers who just saw my work out there and saw that I had an opinion that they happened to share, and people just started calling me. Literally, I was getting phone calls from Canada. I was getting phone calls from all over the United States saying, "Hey, I like what you're saying. What are we going to do now? I want to get behind this. How do we do it? What do I want to do?" So I was like, well, let's just start a restoration. Let's just start a Facebook group. And it's, I've told this story a few times, but it started with a logo, literally a logo. I put up the original Restoration Rebel logo was a complete ripoff of the Rebel Alliance logo in Star Wars. And so I said, if you are a Restoration Rebel, truly, make this logo your picture on LinkedIn. And lo and behold, a couple hundred people did that.
Wow.
And that really started it was like, oh shoot, there's this group here that understands what I'm going through as a restorer. And it just kind of grew organically. We had probably 200 or 300 people in the group before people said, well, we need to get together. We need to have a meeting. We need to figure this thing out. So I said, well, I'm all about it. Let's make a group. Let's have a summit, a Rebel Summit. But I don't want to go anywhere. So you guys are coming to me. And so I just put up an Eventbrite mid 2015. Hey, come to Bend. Get together. We'll talk about all this stuff that's happening in our industry. And 75 restorers showed up.
Wow. To
my hometown. And that's really the genesis of what the group is today. And it started really small. Now we're knocking on the door. I got it up here. 10,700 members.
Wow.
And it is today what it always has been. It's an open mic forum for everyone who labels themselves as an independent restorer and wants some help or wants to give some help or just be there for each other. That's what we are. And it's just it's been amazing. It's amazing. It's just been really cool. It has its up and downs. Mm-hmm. We've had some infighting. We've had people rage quit the group. We've had people, come in and try to take advantage of the group for their own personal gain, and they're no longer here. And so it's a living, breathing thing, and it's a lot like herding cats most days.
Yeah.
But I found that if I as long as I don't try to enforce my will on the group, things happen generally in a good way.
Yeah, there's an old saying, men without fear or compulsion tend to live in harmony. Whatever it may look like. Right. So one of the things I love about it is that, this open forum, and I've part of our, take it to the marketing hat, because that's what I can lend to this conversation. We talk about just being omnipresent, being involved in these communities, being involved in your associations. All right. So we'll say it. Right. And being involved in associations, the net positive is that you get to network with people. You get to kind of have these conversations. What's working, what's not working, where are we at? We can complain to each other. But it seems like a lot of that authenticity or legitimacy of actually getting what you really need out of these associations, not to name any at all, is lost a little bit. I think that's what's really cool about your group, is that there is none of that. There is none of the politics or the bureaucracy or the red tape. It's kind of like, hey, we're really here to legitimately help each other, albeit in a very, maybe against the grain in some cases. So I really think that's one of the best things I've noticed out of the group. And just from talking to you and talking to a couple of the guys here at RIA about it, it seems like your goal of empowering restoration contractors to kind of like get things right is going in the right direction.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think the number of new members, I've got the page up here on my other screen, and we've got another, since I opened this morning, we got 4 new people that want to become members. And it's every day. There's 10, 15 new restorers that find us somehow, that realize that they can find a home here. They can find a camaraderie here. They can find support here. And it's a testament to the value of the group. This, like everything Facebook, we are the product, right? We're not selling anything, but we become the product for Facebook and Meta, but we also get a lot in return for that. And I like what you said about being omnipresent. That's really where I started my social media thing is, I was following Gary Vee, and Gary Vee said, you just put yourself out there and be everywhere you can be. And so, I am never been one to follow the rules and follow instructions. So I just made it up as I went along. So I just post and broadcast my message out there. And if it resonates, people find us. If it doesn't resonate, people don't find us, and that's fine too. We're not for everybody. But it's been a journey for sure.
I can imagine. I think it was funny you said it's like sticking cat where you're herding cats, or trying to stick 4 or 5 cats in a bathtub at the same time. I totally get that. I'm still kind of blown away how you manage that many people and that much complaining and that much moaning. But I do see the net benefit out of it, especially because, us being both like-minded, trying to empower whoever it is that we're with to like say, listen, this is cut through all the BS. This is what's really going on. This is how you're going to navigate this part of your business. And this is where you need to be, no matter what anybody tells you, no matter what shiny new object that's out there. So I think it's really cool. And kudos to you for putting up with it for this long. It's going on 10 years or plus now of having this group?
10 years. I think we're 11 years in the group at this point.
So what kind of people make up this group? This is all smaller independent restorers? Or do you have any kind of idea on that?
The vast majority are small. So I would say if I was going to demographic the members of the now Total Claim Alliance, I would say they're 1 or 2 man operators. They've graduated from another restoration company where they've decided to break off and do it on their own.
Sure.
They're doing anywhere from $5 million to $3 million a year in revenue, which in the grand scheme of things is really, really small. A lot of people would consider that startups, a bunch of little startups. But what I was seeing, and what I think a lot of people that are in the group now were seeing, was they didn't have a voice, because you can't be a $2 million operator in a $200 billion industry and really have any kind of advocacy at all.
Yeah.
And that's where ultimately I would like to go, is I want to be that voice. I want to be that platform for us to have a solid voice, to be represented, to come to be at the table when these things are happening. And that's unfortunately we weren't getting that from the existing associations. We're not going to probably name any names. We don't need to do that. We're not going to shame anybody, but the reality is not every association speaks for all of its members or the entire industry as a whole.
Right.
And I saw that really start to split 2010, 2011, where the smaller voice was just shut out. And I think we've changed that. I think there's things that we've done as a group that have gotten national attention, that have gotten the attention of the other official associations of our industry, and we have forced change on those associations. There's things that these associations are doing now that they weren't doing before the Rebels existed, that I think is a net positive for the entire industry. And I'll take full credit for it.
That's something to hang your hat on. Show's over. I mean, the guy you heard it here first, Andy McCabe, is responsible for all of the positive change happening in the industry these days. Now,
right.
To go back and I guess to beat this horse while it's down. So, what would you say is the main? The seat at the table. I know you made a Facebook video leaving the last event here in West Palm, and I thought it was great. And it was really centered around just having a seat at the table and being able to have that voice. What do you think, in the past here, what is keeping, because at the end of the day, whether you're a $3 to $5 million restorer, 10 to 15, 30 million plus, what was keeping them from having this voice? And what do you think happened in the industry between then and then? I guess we're trending in a better direction from what I can see. But what really happened? What was the main problem?
Well, the main problem was the big players, the big money was determining where this industry went. And I started in this industry before there was real TPAs. I think contract connection was a thing. Someone can correct me, obviously, in the comments or whatever. I don't think contract connection was a thing until 2005, 2006. And even then it started out as a pure compliance play. The carriers needed to have coverage for their insureds across the board, and the TPAs are a way to get that coverage, right? But it started out as we're gonna make sure you have the proper training. We're gonna make sure you have the proper licensure and the proper insurance, and you're following at least some sort of code of conduct or best practices. But what it melded into, fast forward to 2010, 2011, it turned into, we're going to tell you how to do your job.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell you what you can charge to do your job. And what I saw, what really got my blood boiling was the push from carriers and TPAs to enforce carrier and TPA rules outside of the programs. So these program rules got set, and it was fine. You want to be a part of a program, you're going to get these free leads, right?
Yep.
You don't have to do marketing. You're going to get free leads from the program, and in exchange for that, you're going to follow a certain rule set.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean everyone in the industry has to follow that rule set. And unfortunately, that's become the de facto fallback is these standards that started in TPAs, which aren't really standards. They're just cost-saving measures for the carriers.
Sure.
It started getting applied across the board unfairly. And no one was saying anything because I don't think anyone could say anything. At the time, you could speak out, but as soon as you did, you were ostracized. You were cut out.
Yeah.
A perfect example is early on in the Restoration Rebel page, we decided to have a Google Map overlay where we had all the members were on this map. We had hundreds of little Rebel logos all over this Google map. You look at I've got a picture somewhere. I screenshotted it, and it was a beautiful thing. I was like, man, we are huge. We are represented across the board. But almost immediately after that map went live, I started getting phone calls and emails from members saying, hey, you got to take me off. You got to take me off. Well, and I said, what do you mean? You got to take me off? What do you mean? You don't want to be a part of the Rebels anymore? And they were like, no, I do want to be part of the Rebels, but I can't be seen in the Rebels because I got a call from my TPA rep that says we're going to get kicked off the program.
That's
So
crazy.
very early on, the stage was set for this battle of if you have a differing opinion than the world you're operating in, you're going to get kicked out of that ecosystem pretty quickly. So we've had to readjust our approach and readjust our messaging accordingly. And obviously, we can't list our members anywhere because there's a big risk there for them. And when you're only making $1.5 million a year,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
have a major player in your revenue mix is a TPA, and they're saying you're gone, right? We're going to cut you off. There's people that, I mean, it would end their businesses. So that told me early on, we're on the right track. We're
Yes.
resonating. The messaging is correct, and we need to continue down this road. But B, we need to do it as a group and anonymize our members for their own safety. That's just the unfortunate reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Gestapo then, I guess, right? I mean, we, from a marketing company's perspective, our goal was always to get you to get away from having to worry about the TPAs, because not being in the industry and not having to deal with that, my construction background and the company that I run is very different. But man, that is insane. And that, these companies are just watching this to find out. And if you say anything counter to where they're trying to bring things, they're going to shut you down, which means they're taking food off your plate, which, shameless plug. If you're only working with TPA, you shouldn't have all your eggs in that basket. You should be, working on the other sales modalities, like the old school candies and smiles, if that works for your business and the type of client you want, and get into digital marketing a little bit and try to just diversify how you're getting that work in. And the goal should be to be completely independent of that unless need be. But the reality is it's there for a reason. People rely on it. Some people love it. The majority of people I've talked to, like, we can't wait to get away from this type of system. We don't want to have to deal with their terms. Most of the time it's like timing and money, right? It's not, the jobs are the jobs. And then I've got a couple of people that are very successful that are like, no, this is our bread and butter. This is what we do. And, probably I'm assuming that they're the bigger people out there, the bigger guys that are helping push any kind of legislation towards being a benefit for these program work.
Right. Well, before the Rebels existed, there was no AGA, right? The Advocacy and Governmental Affairs Committee of the RIA didn't exist because no one was asking for it to exist. No one was demanding that they have a voice. Everyone was just, please, sir, may I have another, and just beholden to the big programs. So it comes down to business model, really. Do you want to determine your own destiny, or do you want to be a cog in somebody else's wheel?
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, I'm a control my destiny kind of guy, and using that thing as a means to an end is probably perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we invoke this change? I mean, you've got a big group. It sounds like we're making some positive momentum forward. You've got the AGA that has come about because of your group. What else do you see? What's next? Where do we see this going? And how do you get that seat at the table? Is it just growing this group? Is it, getting everybody to maybe, the anonymous, reality of what everybody wants to do so they don't lose it? I mean, how do we navigate that to actually make change? If everybody's afraid to kind of speak up, I mean, is there a point where, okay, the group's this big, we're going to have our own conference, this is how we're going to move towards that? Is that kind of what we're thinking about?
That's exactly what we're thinking about.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, we know, or I know, just from my experience and knowledge, that in order to have real change, that means legislation.
Yeah.
And what that means is lobbying.
Yeah.
And lobbying takes money. And I think the AGA is going down the right road, but it's such a slow burn. It's frustratingly slow. I'm notoriously impatient.
Same here. Yeah.
So if we've got a group out there that says they speak for the restorers, but they only have 1,600 members, how can they really speak for all restorers? And how do they have the money to speak for all restorers on a legislative or lobbying front?
Right.
And the reality is that takes money.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a restorer out of Tennessee last year, who developed a really good piece of legislation that was going to do some really positive things in the state of Tennessee. And he had a senator or a congressman, I forget what it was, who was willing to sponsor it and step up. But it came down to, yeah, I want to help you guys with this. I think you're on the right path, but you got to hire a lobbyist. That's going to be $300K to get this thing to a vote.
Yeah.
Just to get it to a vote.
Yeah.
And if and that's round numbers, it could be more. Mm-hmm. And if it actually passes, you got to send a bonus to that lobbyist that worked on your behalf of another $100 and $150K. So you're looking at $500,000 to get one bill, no guarantee that's going to pass and make it into law. But then you've got to do that if it's the right thing to do and it works, then you got to do that 49 more times.
Yeah.
You're talking about real money, right? So $500,000 times 50 states, that's what it's going to take. And you just can't do it with 1,600 members. We can't do it with 10,500 members.
No. So we need all million of you listening to this to send us $1, and we will. and just to go back to the cost wise, I mean, $500,000 in Tennessee is going to look a lot different in California. It's going to look a lot different in Florida. It's going to look a lot different in New York. So you're talking multiple 7 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures to get this moving. So yeah, that lends to the question of how do these groups of 1,600 are making it there? Well, I guess I'm sure it's involvement of these people that are, have a counter opinion on where they want to see this legislation go. And I guess that's just the way this country rolls. So you need numbers. You need people to join in, and to collaborate is probably a big word. I'm sure the infighting gets a little bit exhausting. I mean, we see it. I tend to not look at any kind of competition. I like to look at everybody as peers. I want to try to learn as much as I can and just be friendly with everybody, because at the end of the day, we all have goals and we all can work with each other to teach each other how to get there. And if we, just like anything else, if you combine your efforts in like the Karate Kid, the strands of rope, you can't break them. So how are we getting there? I mean, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel at this point? I mean, because that's significant.
Well, the first step is to turn the membership. It doesn't do much good. It doesn't do good if our end goal is to legislation and nationwide lobbying. Having a free Facebook group with no dues doesn't get you there.
Yes, right.
It gives you the pulse, right? I think I have a strong feeling for what this subset of restorers wants and needs, but in order to do something real, it has to be a real group. And that's what we've struggled with historically in the Restoration Rebels is everyone wants to be a part of the group, but no one wants to put their money where their mouth is. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we're struggling. So what it looks like is collaboration across groups. There's a reason. The main reason I just changed the name of the group from the Restoration Rebels to the Total Claim Alliance. And the push behind that was we need to have a broader scope of potential membership.
Sure.
And that means public adjusters need to have a voice in the group. That means all these ancillary service providers, appraisers, umpires, plaintiffs' attorneys. I think there's the APA, the American Policyholders Association, doing great stuff. And I think they've got a little bit of money behind them. They've got some sponsors or whatever else, an endowment. But it looks like reaching out to groups like that and combining the efforts. Because we're all really want the same thing at the end of the day. We just speak for different constituents. Yeah. So if I can get, what's his name? Dennis or David over the APA. And there's Public Adjusters Group, NAPIA. We're going to reach across the aisle and see what we can do, coordinate with them. It's this coordinated cross-group effort that I think is going to get us where we need to go. Because we can't do it on our own because we're operating in a vacuum. Yeah.
So how does that look? I mean, what are you presenting as the problem? How do we get buy-in, or how do you guys get buy-in from these different organizations and groups to where it's mutually beneficial to the industry?
Honestly, Ben, I don't know yet.
Okay.
I've just started down that road. I have an idea in my head what it looks like,
Mhm.
but I also have a business to run and a family to feed, and these things don't fund themselves, and nothing
Right.
happens without energy input.
Yeah.
So it's about being efficient, and so I have a plan, but it's not on paper yet. One good thing I think for everyone out there needs to know that we're going to have a summit. We've had 3 Rebel Summits. We're going to have a summit this September, and I am looking at that being the stepping stone to the next phase of what this industry can be. We've got billion-dollar companies out there with have very different ideas of what they want the industry to be. But those billion-dollar companies are in the minority. They're the financial majority, but they're in the minority as far
Sure.
as total market. It depends on who you ask, but there's anywhere from 40 to 55,000 restoration companies out there. And if we can get a fraction of those guys on the same page, moving in the same direction, using the same talking points, that's going to be where real change starts to happen real fast.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you have any info on the summit you'd like to share now so we can get it out to the people listening to this?
Well, we just became a brainchild on the heels of last week's conference. So I've got a URL, but it's nothing behind it yet. So I'm not going to put that out there, but we're going to be in the Ozarks, Lake of the Ozarks. Is that what it is? In September sometime. Okay. It's the 18th through the 20th of September. We're working on the details fast and furious right now. And we've already got some really great energy. There's some folks in the group who said, yes, I'm in, just tell me when and where. And I think that if we can get the right people there, we can start having this conversation in a meaningful way.
Like organizing all of the Ewoks to fight against the Imperial.
That's really
it'd be a similar landscape too, I think. And if we show up, we're pretty hairy guys. I mean, they're good.
It's a very much a guerrilla warfare effort. It's fighting, house to house. And we're not gonna, no one's gonna have. It's not going to be an overarching thing. I think we're going to start plugging ourselves in different areas of the market and pushing from below, and just keep repeating the message and the message and the message.
Well, educating not only just the industry, but even the world in general, right? As to what's happening, what the benefits are for the homeowner or for the business owner that's dealing with these types of claims, I think is going to be important. So, just to throw it out there, this platform is always available for you guys. Anybody in the TCA, that I like to call it, the new name for the Rebels, the Total Claim Alliance. We'd be happy to have you guys come on and talk about the problems, because at the end of the day, our goal here with this show and what I'm doing here is just to help empower people with data, with some valued information to help them grow their businesses the right way, because this type of thing affects everybody when you're dealing with claims. So thank you for all that with the Rebels. I love the group. There's a lot of people that are in it, and I watch it from way up here and read and wait till somebody tags and talks smack about my company to make sure I can yell at my people if they're not doing the right thing. We do it. But let's talk about your business, right? You're not just an advocate for the industry. You're not just this rebel soldier flying through space and trying to just make legitimate change. I'm sure this was birthed out of what you're doing now as your day-to-day, how you feed your family, and everything kind of links together. So can walk me through a little bit about what you do, name of your business, and just, we'll go from there.
Yeah. Claims Delegates is the name. I started in 2012, and it really speaks for itself. We want to help you be your delegate, be your representation to the insurance side of the equation. The main thing what we do is help contractors develop profitable, thorough scopes using Xactimate. Because if you're not making a profit, you're not going to grow, and if you're not growing, you're dying. Yeah. And if you're running a dying business, you can't help the rest of us, right? You're still concentrating on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You got to feed yourself first, and you got to have shelter. And then once you have all these base things taken care of, then you can start talking about, what am I going to do? What's my legacy? How am I going to affect real change? But until we can get guys profitable and making good money and growing, we're never going to be able to get all this stuff at the top done. So that's what I like about, Claims Delegates helps people make more money through really good defensible Xactimate estimates. And you guys help restorers make more money by getting more business in the door that doesn't have strings attached to it. That's the biggest. You can do all kinds of TPA work at a certain level of margins, or you can just say, you know what, I'm going to define my own future, my own destiny, and I'm going to go get my own work and charge what I need to in order to grow and reinvest in my company. And so I've had multiple clients where I've gotten into their business. We'll lift the hood and see what's going on. And I said, well, what if you could do half the work but take home twice the amount of money? And that's really what it comes down to when people open their eyes and say, you know what, the margins on this work are really small. The only way you're going to make a good, thriving business in the TPA world is just to do monster volume. Or you could just dominate your own local market, do really good work, and charge a fair price. And at the end of the day, take home more money.
And make your own hours and all the good things that come with, being an entrepreneur. I guess a lot of people don't realize that with this, and for me, just thinking about how this program works, like you're starting a company, you're going to go through all of the risk that's involved, all the financial risk, the risk of your family, time, the most valuable resource we have, and you end up just working for somebody anyways. Right. And you're just taking on more risk. You're not getting covered with health insurance. You're just listening. So you really should empower yourself to learn, how you are going to. And I think there's a world where you use it as a stepping stone. You got to keep feeding the machine. But as far as Claims Delegates and somebody getting into bed with you guys, what stage of a business would you say somebody be ready to start working with you guys to help them scale?
Well, they need to have where I see the most value, where I bring the most value, is getting guys out of the field. And letting guys spend more time on their business instead of in their business. And the estimating function of restoration, we're not going to be able to get out of it, right? There's just too much gravity. There's too much momentum. It's very hard for folks to say, I'm not going to use Xactimate. I'm going to do my own thing. But every single claim, you're going to run into this wall where the adjusters are going to demand that you use Xactimate. So you can either fight that, and there's successful guys in our group that don't do any TPA work and they don't use Xactimate. God bless them. But they are the few and far between, because the overwhelming majority of the work is going to be pushed through the Xactimate ecosystem just by the nature of the momentum that exists. And that's where I last year, I think it was last year's RIA conference, it really hit home to me, like, man, we've been trying to swim upstream for a long time. And one or two guys are going to make it up, right? But the vast majority of us are going to have a hard time fighting upstream. So let's turn around, let's go with the flow, but then find a way to put our own flavor on it. Find a way to we're going to use Xactimate, fine, but we're not going to use programs, or we're going to use programs as a portion of our revenue mix, but we're going to try more and more to get independent revenue of those programs. And so you're still playing by the rules, you're playing nice, but you're growing your business to try to find if every single claim is a fight, you're going to burn out. And I've seen me do it. I've done it. And there's only so much fight you can have in you. And unless you're hitting home runs every single time, or you're hitting enough home runs to make it worth your while, you're better off figuring out a way to get along and go with the flow, and just put your own spin on it.
That makes a lot of sense. And, definitely appreciate you and what you're doing with the, just through, I think just in general, just with your business and a Rebels group, just kind of just giving people value and really helping them navigate this world because, I'm in the site development world. I'm in the marketing world as well, which is crazy in its own. And the site development world is a little bit more straightforward. I mean, we have the normal estimating AR. We're chasing money constantly, but it's a lot different. Everything is much more black and white. We're not dealing. The miss pain in the ass thing that we deal with are the different municipalities that we work in and all the different craziness they make you jump through to get the jobs done. But this is a really interesting industry. It's really competitive. I love it. The more I learn about it, the more it's like opening my eyes to the real problems people have, and it really just helps me sharpen my focus on speaking to this group to help them get more leads and help them get their digital marketing footprint, whatever that looks like. And we have learned over the years who a qualified company would look like for us. Right, they have to have certain systems in place, or they're just throwing money at us like we're the magic pill that's going to solve all their problems. And that's really not the case. So, I really like people like you and the other gentleman, like Doug from Rare Restoration. I got a chance to meet. We rapped a little bit. We did a podcast recently about AI, and he's really super stoked on that. I know us three are going to get together pretty soon and do some stuff and really trying to attack some of these problems that we see, because I think I bring another edge to the table from dealing with this from a perspective of marketing and trying to get this visual and seeing what the mistakes people are making. And then also at the same time, looking at our own company, seeing what mistakes we've made, looking at our competitors, or if you want to call them that, in the marketing agents, and seeing where they're dropping the ball, and kind of just coming together and just put it out there and say, look, this is what it looks like. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And, the company that you're going to use to make it work is going to have to be a good fit, and you're going to have to be a good fit as well. And you're going to have these processes in place before this is something that's going to give you good ROI. So I love guys like you, Doug, everybody else that I met there that are really advocating just to really help people, legitimately. It's rare in this world. People aren't really out to just give it away. So it resonates. Everything you're doing, I can't say enough, and I'm sure everybody out there appreciates all the advocacy, all the empowerment that you're giving, all the info. I mean, it's not easy to sit there and go live at an airport and not be distracted and really say it how it is. I mean, really kudos to you. I mean, it takes some gumption to walk into a huge conference and start it before you walk in the door with, how things really are. And you're a voice for the people that have no voice, because if they speak up, they're getting beheaded in a sense, right from a business perspective. So that's great for you. I really appreciate that about what you're doing. So I want to switch gears now that we've got that out of the case. One of the things that we do here on every episode is we're tailing. We've learned a lot about the Rebels. We learned about the claims delegates. We learned about what you do in your background. I want to have you identify just a couple of the biggest problems that you're seeing right now in the restoration industry, and then kind of how we're going to navigate those problems in whatever they may be. They don't have to be relevant to what you do. Just in general terms, I want to just pick something that's going to resonate, the everyman issue that they're having here now in the industry.
Well, one of the biggest problems I see is our constant desire to bend over backwards to abide by unwritten rules. And if you there are very few hard and fast rules in the world, let alone restoration. But what we find ourselves doing is second guessing and negotiating against ourselves based on these unwritten implied rules. You mentioned that in your site development business, you've got to deal with the municipalities and all the rules and the licensing and permitting and things like that. Well, restorers have to do that too, right? They're contractors at the end of the day, but they just have this additional layer of required minutia and admin burden that they have to take on. And if you don't understand that there's an additional overhead you have to take on in order to operate in this realm, you're going to wake up and go, oh shoot, there's another 10% of overhead that I didn't have when I was a regular contractor.
Right.
So the unwritten rules are the biggest problem, and that's where I see the TPAs are trying to influence, do these enforce their rules on the rest of the industry.
Yep.
But know what the rules are, and they're very few. Right. You've got to be a contractor, so you got to follow all the legal stuff that entails. But when you have adjusters and carriers telling you, well, you can't charge for X, Y, and Z, unless that is in a book or a guide or can you send me that, can you send me that rule set?
Yep.
You don't actually have to follow those rules. With the only reason that we use Xactimate is out of a courtesy to the insurance world. Xactimate is not required to run a contracting business, but it is de facto required to run a restoration business, because it's so hard to speak apples to apples, speak the same language as these carriers, unless you're using Xactimate. So there's all kinds of, I would say when folks go above and beyond, when they think that's what they have to do, but they don't know for sure, they're just wasting their own time and energy and money, abiding by these imaginary rule sets. They're implied, but they're not written down anywhere. And that's the biggest issue I see. Other than that, you've got to be a good business person at the end of the day. The restoration industry has no lack of what's the entrepreneurial the E-myth, right? There's no shortage of guys that were working for a restoration company for years and decided they could do it better, and then they get out and they discover they don't have much of a business acumen. They know the technical skills, they have the technical stuff down pat, but it doesn't matter if you know how to dry a structure. If you don't know how to get paid to dry a structure, you've got a problem. And if you don't know how to manage people and run a business with accounts receivable and taxes and payroll and all that stuff, it's people look at the industry and it feels like, oh man, there's tons of money. It's free money because the insurance company just pays you, right? That's the assumption from outside.
Yeah.
Once you get into it, man, you've got to run a real business. You've got to be a real business person. And that's a wake-up call for a lot of folks.
Lucky for them that there are these groups, there are these associations, there are podcasts like this, there's the Total Claim Alliance, the Rebels group. And it seems in general, most of the people I've run into anyways are very good with sharing and kind of just that giver's gain mentality and let's go. So I think that's another to lend to how important the Rebels group is and whatever. If there's other groups out there I'm unaware of, that's awesome. And I think that the logical next step is to kind of align everybody together to kind of share a common goal. But one of the biggest things that my only role here at Ironclad Restoration Marketing is just the education side.
Sure.
I'll teach you, through the book or through the podcast, how to do every little thing when it comes to marketing your business. And what I'm finding out more and more is that the genesis of this success is going to boil down to being a good business person at the end of the day, no matter what. Really everybody thinks it. You've got a water guy and he's like, shit, this is easy. I'll just go and do this and make some money. And it might work for a few months, right? There's some outliers out there and some people just figure it out. I'm more of the Kool-Aid man style of entrepreneurship. I just kick through the wall and say, I'm here, and I figure it out after the fact. Sometimes I, don't break through the wall at all, but I think that's what's great about your group and everything. Again, just to reiterate that. And I implore everybody out there that's listening to this, if you find yourself or resonate with any of the things that Andy's talked about, just join the group, ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. He's hiding your name, so you're anonymous. You can talk smack about people if you want. You don't have to worry about the queen beheading you if they find out you're questioning their means and methods and how they're driving the industry. But it's really refreshing just to meet people like you and talk to people like you, and one, to learn, but just to know that you guys are trying to right the ship and you're trying to steer this in the right direction and mold the industry into what it should be or what it used to be. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I think that the dues thing is a logical first step. For the 16,000 members to spend $20 a month to be part of a group of people. Outside of that too, you're constantly doing, education and webinars. You're even doing webinars in Espanol. I mean, I didn't know you were such a fluent speaker of Spanish. I got to see that on LinkedIn, but that's a small price to pay. I mean, I spend more than that on Celsius energy drinks every 3 days. So if you can really roll that out, I implore everybody join it and get involved, spend the money on the dues, because at the end of the day, it's going to benefit everybody. If you could get all those members to give $20 a month, you're talking about that $500,000 right there, right on the spot. Yeah. That is going to go towards, making real change that's going to benefit you in the future.
Yeah. It takes, I want every restorer that I interact with to be incredibly successful. Mm. Because if we are incredibly successful, that means we have money and time to put towards bigger, better, more global things. But until we have that extra money and extra time, be a part of the group, be a part of any group you can, get as much information as you can, but you can't give back until you have a solid foundation. And if every single person that I touch is able to double their net revenue, their net profit at the end of the year, that's going to be the genesis of change. That's going to allow people to have more time and energy to focus on the greater good instead of just focusing on this week's payroll. I started Claims Delegates, like I said, 2012, but it took me 5 or 6 years to really understand that as long as I was doing everything, I was never going to grow, and I was always going to be burned out.
Yeah.
The first estimator I hired was like a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And I want to, tell this to all the water techs out there that want to go start their own thing. Your goal for starting your own thing your first goal should be hiring your first water damage technician.
Yes.
Because you can't be the technician and the CEO. Not in a thriving business. You can do a one-man operation forever, but congratulations, you've just created a job for yourself.
Yeah.
You haven't created a business.
Yeah.
So I want everyone out there to focus on, are you creating a business or are you just creating another job for yourself?
Yeah, it's a great point. And if I could lend to that a little bit too, if you're out there and you're the water tech that thinks, hey, I'm going off on my own, I mean, I'm all for it. My suggestion absolutely. And I think just like you're saying, hire that water tech. You got to work on your business, and don't think that all you need to do is get on 33 Mile and Quietly or partner up with a marketing agency like Ironclad, and that's going to solve all your problems. You're not ready for a marketing agency unless you have a couple techs, you've got a truck, you've got great relationships with plumber, however that is going to look. You might be doing some program work. You're not ready for it until you have systems, you have somebody answering the phone. And I don't care what marketing companies out there, what they're going to tell you. I own a marketing agency that only markets for restorers. And I'll tell you right now, one of the biggest reasons these things don't work is you treat this marketing as you got your head in the sand. Mm-hmm. And you say, well, I'm going to just focus on what I'm good at. I'm going to go do MIT jobs. I'm going to go do whatever it is out in the field. And I'm going to hire these guys out here for $2,500 a month. They promised me the world, and they're just going to make this work for me. You're 99.999% of the time, you're going to be giving somebody thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're not going to get jack for it. So processes, look, I've written 100 articles on this, and I guess it's counter to even, I don't care about the marketing bit. We'd rather have a client in a marketing space that is ready, because then our competitiveness and what we're really good at is going to be compounded tenfold, and you're going to get much better results than if you're just starting out. So if you are just starting out, follow us, follow Andy, join the group. I'm on open book. So if anybody's out there in the Rebels group and you have questions or you've heard about us and you want to just hit me up, message me. I've got 2 Facebook accounts. One's run by my company. One's me. I'm in the group on both. So it's confusing. The professional one's Benjamin. Mine's Ben. Reach out, ask me the questions. I'm not going to BS you. You have to be ready to spend money on digital marketing, just like you have to be ready to spend money on XYZ for your business. But if you really take that approach with this, you're going to be successful in the long run. Take that long view approach on your business and get your head out of the sand. Don't listen to marketing agencies unless they're ready to tell you what you don't want to hear. And you're going to be in a much better position long term. So, I know you're not starting a business to have a job for a few months and then it fizzles out and you're going back to, you're crumpling your hand and your hat in your hands and begging for your job back. So if you really want to be successful, follow this kind of guys. Follow us. If you think that marketing is something you want to get into, I'm an open book. I'll tell you exactly what you can do for free right now to get exposure. It's not that hard. It's not rocket appliances. It's not rocket science or rocket appliances.
Well, at the end of the day, you as a business person, you need to understand fundamentally, in order to grow, you're going to add overhead. It's physics.
Yeah.
You can't grow your business without adding overhead. The biggest businesses have more overhead, right? If you're let's say you are that one-man operator, you're $500, $1 million a year. Maybe you got a technician or two under you and you got an office person, right?
Yeah.
In order to double your revenue, you've got to double your head count. And a lot of guys are hesitant to do that. I mean, I've got that on my side when people come and say, well, $185 an hour to write estimates, that's a lot of money. I can do it. Well, yeah, you can do it.
Sure.
But what are you giving up in order to do it? What are you giving up in order to run your own estimating?
I call it like plate spinning. You're the plate spinners at the circus and you're not good at it. Right. In my TED Talks, if you've seen me speak and anything, I call you that. We're all, as entrepreneurs, amateur plate spinners. And if you are working on spinning one plate too long, the other plates are going to fall down onto the ground and break, and you're going to get laughed right out of the building, unfortunately.
Yeah. You gotta be willing to take on more overhead, and there's more risk there, right? There's a lot of people that you get stuck because they can't seem to get themselves they can't get the revenue to a point where they can justify hiring the next person. But when I hired my first estimator, I couldn't afford that estimator. But very quickly I realized that my revenue had doubled and then I could afford them. So it's a chicken and the egg sometimes, but man, if you want to grow, you gotta prove it. Prove it to yourself and prove it to the industry. You gotta make the commitment and take on the risk.
And you think about it, if you're watching this, if you think about the letter J, right? If you're standing at that point, you're standing on the low end of the J, and you've got to jump down to make it to the top. And it's normal with every business. I mean, I've just, we have a marketing agency for the restoration world, but before we got into the restoration niche, I had a generalist marketing agent. I've worked with tons of different industries, and they all have the same issues. And the benefit about having this experience here is all the successful people did the same thing. They developed strong systems. They took those risks when they had to. They spent a lot of late nights doing things on their own, listening to people that have done it before. And they get to a point where they jump down off that J. And once they make it out of that little valley, they're going to be at the top, and the sky's the limit at that point. So I love to see it. I hope that, by this kind of stuff, this education, people can really get, something out of this and really make a change in their business. And
business is business.
Yes.
And sometimes we fool ourselves in restoration to think we're some sort of special unicorns. And the regular rules don't apply because we're restoration contractors. We're in the insurance disaster recovery business. No, you're in business. And if you ignore the rules of business, you're going to do it at your own peril. It's just, there's all kinds of books out there that don't have the title restoration in them. Right. Built to Sell. Great book.
Yes.
Doesn't talk about restoration. It talks about business.
Yeah. It's good. Think about that. You gotta have a plan. One of the things I see people miss out a lot, not to beat a dead, or you're going to talk about it a lot, but it's understand who you're selling to, understand all these different things and how they work together. And, again, I can't say it enough. I'm a huge proponent of education. It's why I spend my time doing this and writing this book for the 9 millionth time that I'm working on right now, is just to really, one, it's self-serving, because I think an educated customer is a much better customer. We get better results for them when they know what it's supposed to look like. But two, I've been there. I'm on the long road. I'm up and down all the time with all these different things because I don't have any formal background. I was laying pipe out of high school and working my butt off and mixing concrete and, and incrementally just, okay, well, what's the next thing that I need to do? And, here I am with them. Who would have thought, marketing agency and all these things going on. It really took a lot of failures. It took a lot of resiliency, I think would be the best word. But if you listen to your brothers out there, your sisters, and you kind of like just heed their advice and see what's working, what's not working, you're going to be in a much better position. But again, to plug the Rebels group, the Total Claim Alliance, AKA Restoration Rebels, BKA Restoration Rebels, also known as the TCA. I like that. TCA has got a really nice ring to it. It sounds really professional. So when we do get the lobbyists out there, we're a lobbyist with the TCA, and this grassroots group that you put together and is incredible, man. I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate your time here. Is there anything else you want to share? First of all, real quick, I've got your URL to your website scrolling on the bottom, claimsdelegates.com, if they want to get in touch with you. You're not that easy. You're not that hard to find. In person, you're like, what, 7'3".
Yes.
So you stand out above the crowd. One of the tallest humans I've ever sat next to. But also the Facebook group. I put up the URL from the group here. It's a lot of numbers. It looks like something, but you just search Restoration Rebels in Facebook. If you're not a member, join. If you are somebody out there that's predatory on the industry, don't join. You're just going to be wasting your time. Andy's got a pretty good system of kicking your butt out if you want to. And if you're a rebel and you're listening to this, invite people. That's how you can make a change from within. You might not want to be a loud voice there, but the more you can share this group, it's really easy. If you go on Facebook and get into the group, there's a blue button that says invite, and just invite anybody you think could be a thing. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of this group here and everything that Andy's doing and all these guys that I've been talking to lately and getting to know is they're really trying to push positive change that's going to affect every single one of you that are listening to this.
I'm a huge fan of learning through other people's pain.
Yes.
And that's what we have a lot of in this group is people coming in with a pain point that someone else has already solved. And so absorb it, use it, copy it. There's no shame in copying what's working. And learn from somebody else's hard lessons so you don't have to take those lessons on your own.
Yep. Well, Andy, I really appreciate your time. If anybody wants to get in touch, look, his URL is at the bottom. Not a hard guy to find. Join the group. And if you guys want to learn anything else about what we have going on, stay tuned. We have some stuff cooking with Andy and Doug. We're going to talk about everything. I mean, Doug is the AI maven. So I'm really interested to learn a lot more about that. If you missed him at the RIA, you missed a really good session on it. Doug's a great guy. Andy, I appreciate your time. I appreciate how gracious you've been with your time with me, being a nobody coming up and bugging you to get on the podcast for this time. And I think that we can, we're here, we can help you invoke real change and we're going to be a helpful sounding board for you and anything that you have going on. We're looking forward to having you on more so in the future. And with that being said, man, I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your winter weather out there in Bend, Oregon.
Will do. Anytime, Ben. Thanks, man.
I appreciate you, man. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Listen, we've got a lot of really exciting things coming down the pipeline, including some roundtable discussions. We're going to bring on some of the team members from Ironclad Restoration Marketing, talking about some of the new changes that are happening this year, where we see AI taking the restoration industry and your digital marketing, and all kinds of really cool guests coming up here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.